Hello again, Mike here, back after a few weeks of lovely busyness and not so lovely sickness. I decided to do a Throwback Thursday. So, I went to university several years ago. I was actually a computer science major, but I did a fair number of courses in film and video. So what I wanted to do is I actually want to go through some of my old videos and critique them a little bit, comment on, kind of how I did them, and some of the ways that I would do it differently now, having better gear and better experience. Most of these are from about 5 years ago or so. So yeah, the first one we're going to look at is called You Saw Me. Yes, compelling title. I've definitely got, all sorts of awards on the way. No, not really. It was our first major assignment of that class. Our task was we were given a fixed script. It was a script with just a few lines of dialogue. It was a one-pager. It was really open to interpretation. It was vague. We could interpret it and play with it how we liked. And that was the point. There was 4 people in my group, and we did 4 separate videos, one for each. So this one is mine. So essentially, I did most of the production work for this. I did have one of our group members on set to help me. And I cast the other 2 as the actors. So what we're going to do is we're going to roll through it. And as I get to certain parts that I want to talk about, I'll pause and I'll jump in, jump out, and we'll go through it. But first, let's take it all the way through once, and just so you can see the whole thing all together. Ready? Let's go.
I saw you the other day.
You saw me?
Yes, I saw you.
You were watching me? I don't think I like it when you watch me.
Ha!
I'm sorry. The sky is very beautiful.
It is very beautiful.
So that's essentially the whole thing. Basically, short, the lines you heard were the lines we had to use. And I basically did this sci-fi wizarding school with special effects. I actually created a story, a universe arc that I actually used in multiple videos. There's actually one coming up that I'll do maybe next time. That is the continuation of this story later on in the semester. So the first part I want to talk about is this opening sequence. As you can see, it's just me and Cameron, who was one of our team, just walking across the campus. It's kind of a little thing I do when I did a lot of these works. I put myself in them, even if I was directing and shooting. And a lot of our projects, I kind of snuck myself in if I was directing. One of the things that you might notice is that the colors are a little contrasty, a little saturated. I might also, add a little bit of little sharpening or something to it. It seems a little soft. So this is where I exit the frame. One of the things that I missed and I got absolutely torn apart from on the actual script, or on the actual thing, was this coffee cup. Where is he? Right here. This coffee cup here is present in this scene. We roll a little bit further, and over here should be a coffee cup. Should be right there. It just vanished. I told you, it's a magical school, right? I really wanted to give the idea that, Greg over here, pictured here, just, has a really bad attitude, which is funny because Greg's actually one of the nicest guys you'll ever meet. But I wanted to give the idea that he's just kind of the campus bully, and Cameron, our other actor, knows of him, but really didn't want to run into him. So basically we play out this introduction. It is a little weak as far as actually introducing the drama, and essentially it just cuts back and forth. So I might have, if I was doing this now, I'd probably spice that up a little bit. Maybe get some over-the-shoulder shots or do an over-the-shoulder reveal or something like that. But as this plays out, they talk. Gotta love that audio, or lack thereof. Yeah. I checked the audio levels for Greg, and I didn't notice how far away the mic was getting from Cameron. So when we recorded it, the levels were significantly lower. That was about as loud as I could push them at the time. I didn't know how to clean it up enough to get a little extra louder. Now, obviously, I could correct that a little bit. Music bed also gets a little loud, and I'd probably do these days. But, it's what I could do with tracks I found on the internet, given my budget. That was my budget. So, this shot. This shot I love for all the wrong reasons. Okay. For those of you who don't know, in cinematography, there's a 180-degree rule. Basically, if you have one person on the left, one person on the right, you should keep them that way. I shot this mirrored to what it is now. I actually shot it. I came from a shooting position over on this side, and I crossed over to this side. Basically, what that did is that would have made it look like he was suddenly turned around and was fighting the tree, the garbage can, me, going to run away. But either way, this didn't work. So what I actually did is, because I shot this the other way, that background is not what should have actually been behind him. Admittedly, it was much more interesting than what was actually behind him, which was just the pink building. This shot, I just mirrored it in Adobe, and it turned out okay. Them's the breaks. What can you do? Over here, you can see him doing a little energy ball thing. I did that in After Effects, and all they really are is just circles with some lens flare, some blurriness, some randomization effects. They're not that advanced. Arguably, if I were doing it now, I might have some lightning bolts like coming out of his hand, like discharge of static electricity as the ball goes brighter, actually dim the scene. Think of it this way. If someone turns on a really bright light in a scene, you have to adjust your exposure. Well, I would just do it in post, whereas that orb gets brighter in this initial sequence, the scene actually gets darker because we're compensating. And I think that would probably sell the effect a lot more than, here's a glowing little ball of green. Whoop. Whoop, whoop, whoop. Speaking of lighting, this was another shot I absolutely loved, and the rest of the class absolutely loved. The fact that I effectively blew up a building on campus without blowing up a building on campus. These are actually just a bunch of clips from the Action Essentials, their old 720 PhD pack. And I kind of layered them up with some smoke and kind of put a couple sound effects on top. This, once again, would be one of those places where a little bit of camera shake and a little bit of kind of adjusting for exposure. Really, the balance isn't quite right to get it believable, as well as some of the alpha channel and the opacity. Some of it's a little too opaque. But it worked, and I was all proud of myself for, accomplishing my first visual effect without having to resort to special effects. Another missed opportunity. There should be, if you're throwing glowing projectiles right above somebody's head, there should be some glow cast, there should be some lighting cast. And of course, after the little explosion of dust and dirt, we enter in a sequence of shots that are badly matched and badly cut. This point, I didn't have quite the same sense of timing and rhythm. I didn't have the same color correcting abilities. One could argue I still don't have color correcting abilities, but that's something we can argue later. Essentially, these shots should be tighter. We're on a little bit of an action kick, so it should be bam, 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 bam. That white projectile ain't nothing but just a lens flare. Also, please notice this awesome combination of not actually seeing the actor fall. So, as you can see, he's already on the ground over here. Once again, needs tightened.
I'm sorry. The sky is very beautiful.
Lame visual effects. Audio's so quiet you can barely hear it. And for the bonus round, do you believe him? Do you believe his intensity? So now, essentially, and this is my favorite part, is I didn't want to actually show the other actor getting eliminated. This isn't a game show. We don't eliminate people here. So I actually just cut. I dropped to black just as soon as he launches this. He just... And we let you decide what happens then. So, essentially, that's kind of the whole thing. It's just a goofy little video. I got a fairly good grade on it, given my experience at that level. It's mainly shot on borrowed equipment from work. I managed to borrow a Canon 60D H4n, and I have my own shotgun mic, Sennheiser ME62. Lighting was a big fire orb in the sky that I hate every morning. I would like to be able to sleep in, There was a couple shots where I probably could have used a bounce or a reflector to fill in some more details and create a little more dramatic mood. It does appear really flat. It doesn't appear terribly dramatic. So yeah, if I were to remix this, that's kind of what I would do. I also want to point out that this project was one of my biggest lessons in data security or data retention. If I somehow wanted to remix this particular footage, I would have to actually use this compressed file, the final file that I prepared for YouTube. I don't have the source media. I was moving it around and I thought I had it copied to a drive. I copied everything over. I deleted what I thought was the old duplicate folder, and several others along with it. And I discovered that all the files weren't in that folder. Files were actually in a different folder named something entirely different, and they went to the great recycling bin in the sky. The worst part is I couldn't even do a restore or any sort of disaster recovery because by the time I noticed was like a year and a half, 2 years down the road. And that drive had been written to so many times, there was just nothing to recover. So unfortunately, I lost a massive ton of files, including all of the raw footage for this. If you thought DSLR footage would be hard to work with, hard to correct, this would be more so. And I can't separate the music from the dialogue, and it would just be a huge mess of trying to kludge it together. I might actually re-edit some of my other projects, make them better, bring them up to snuff. But this one, I wanted to start with it because unfortunately I can never remix this, which saddens me. Because this was one of my first for YouTube, well, for class, but this was one of my first kind of finished projects of learning video. I mean, I've got a couple with work, but this was the first one that was me, that was mine. And I can't go back to it, but oh well. So that wraps it up for this week. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you next time. Till then, that's a wrap.